Well, good morning, everyone. It's RVNTV on Thursday morning here in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. And this is the Coffee with Joe show. My name is Joe Asumendi, your host. But if you've seen the program before, you know that that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is the person you're going to meet right next to me pretty soon, well, via Zoom. And you're going to learn a lot from this person, and you're going to really have a great show to watch today. Welcome to Ken Countess. Ken is the managing director of a company called the Countess Group out of Orlando, Florida. And Ken, welcome to Morning Coffee with Joe.
Hey, thank you, Joe. Good morning. Good to be with you.
Ah, my pleasure. Well, Ken, I want to start out by introducing you to my audience. You have a really great background. Could you please introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. Well, as you know, my name's Ken Countess, and my company is the Countess Group. We are marketing coaches or marketing consultants, and what we do is we help businesses to become better marketers primarily, because very few people are born with marketing as their second nature or even first nature. And so what we do is we help people either directly or by coaching them to market their business. It's something that is so important, especially now. We're recording this during the pandemic, and so many businesses have found that the traditional ways of marketing their business just don't work anymore. And so this is our specialty, is digital marketing. So if you see behind me, we do things like email marketing. I'm actually a Constant Contact's top trainer. They just named me that again, so okay. I'm really proud of that distinction. But we help with lead generation, brand awareness, marketing, automation, all the things that it takes to help a business market themselves. We're in our 20th year as the Countess Group, and prior to that, I spent over 20 years at Fortune 100 companies, and you probably recognize the names, Motorola, Marriott, a company that's now owned by CVS that was Caremark. And I also was a senior executive at a company that's now a part of Honeywell, and that's Data Max O'Neill.
Well, that's pretty impressive. You're also a public speaker, is that right, Ken?
I'm a public speaker too, yeah. I speak pretty regularly at trade shows. I hold almost weekly webinars, but I love being on stage. And really, it's a matter of teaching people how to run their businesses better.
Well, your strategic marketing communications is so important, and that's what your specialty is, correct?
That's right. Okay.
What distinguishes the Countess Group from other competitors in this field?
Well, what makes us different is we really focus on the client. So many businesses that are similar to ours have a cookie cutter approach. They say, here's what your need is, and we've got this, and they take it right off the shelf and say, this will fix it for you. But that's not really what it's all about. I mean, just like there are 7 billion people running around the planet, no two people are alike, even if they're identical twins. So the same is true with businesses. Every business has its own unique challenges, and they may have a unique market that they're going after. One of the things that we do is we teach business owners how to create their unique selling proposition. What is it that they're really trying to do? What service are they trying to perform? What is it that makes them important to their customers, that makes them indispensable? So when we think about things like marketing automation, what we're really talking about here is going the next level deeper and targeting the marketing. So for instance, the term I like to use is spray and pray. A lot of businesses, when they're marketing their products and services, they spray and pray. And if you ask them, well, who's your target market? They say, everybody. Well, not everybody needs what you have to sell. So if you try to drill down and make it really unique and stand out as the company that is best positioned to service you, that will make you more successful. And so we help companies tailor their marketing like that. So let me give an example. Let's say, for instance, your marketing should be targeting, let's say, people in their 50s and 60s that live in the Southeast US. Well, if that's the case, then why would you be marketing to people in their 20s and 30s who are on the West Coast of the US? That's not targeting your marketing. So what's happening is you're wasting money, right? Because it costs money to market or advertise. And your message isn't resonating to the people that you're really trying to get to. The way you speak to someone in their 50s and 60s is very different from the way you speak to someone or market your products and services to people in their 20s and 30s. And so that's the sweet spot. That's what sets us apart from our competitors, is we teach you exactly what to do to reach your target in the most effective and cost-effective way.
That's a really great explanation. The Countess Group has been involved in this kind of thing for 20 years, correct?
That's right.
Okay, what kind of changes have you seen in the 20 years in marketing and communications that is important?
Oh, that's a great question. And the changes have been really dramatic. I mean, really dramatic. If you look back 20 years ago, people were just barely hearing about the internet. You know, most of the marketing that was done then was print, right? Print brochures, print ads, newspaper and radio and TV were the primary ways you would market your business. But today, so much of it has swung to digital. In fact, you know, I subscribe to many industry publications, Ad Age being one of them. And what's happened and what has accelerated over the last couple of years is how the advertising spends and marketing budgets have shifted from traditional, what we know in the past, you know, newspaper, print, and so on, to digital. More than half of budgets now need to be on the digital side rather than traditional. I mean, just as we're talking, doing a show that's seen on the internet, that didn't exist 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Now, we've seen changes like if everything was normal, there's changes. And then you had a pandemic. How has that affected everything?
Yeah, the pandemic has certainly accelerated those changes because we can't be face to face as easily anymore. And just as we're doing this via Zoom, the good news is that we're able to communicate very effectively electronically 1,500 miles away from each other, where a year ago, we would have very comfortably been sitting around the same table.
Right.
So for businesses to be successful during the pandemic, by and large, they've had to pivot from the old way, you know, shake hands and meet in person. I used to do live events twice a week before the pandemic, right, on site. Now I do them twice a week or more online. And, you know, it takes an adjustment. It's not exactly the same. You know, you can see somebody face to face and have a great interaction. It's different online. You can simulate it very well, just as I see you and you see me.
Right.
But it's not quite the same as being in person. So for many businesses, it's been a big challenge.
When you go in to talk to a person about their business, how receptive are they to the changes with Zoom and everything like that? Is that a pretty good transition for people?
Well, I think this far into the pandemic, and you know, we're about 9-10 months into it now. I think many people have come to accept the fact that tools like Zoom are the new way to do business. Just think about office buildings. I mean, I listen to a New York City news station every morning. I stream it, right? That's another difference in the technology,
right,
where I used to turn on an AM or FM radio, and now I stream it. I can listen to or watch things from anywhere on the planet. So here's what's going on in part, is when you have these big companies around the world who used to have these big offices in locations, you know, in many major cities. And they have told their employees it's okay to work remotely. In some cases, they've said now, work remotely permanently. And why is that? It's because tools like Zoom and Microsoft Teams and others have made it that much easier for people to continue to stay in touch, to be face-to-face while they're in a different location.
That's also very interesting too, because you said one of the things you said that I think I just picked up on is that a lot of these businesses now, where they used to have people coming back, they might leave people at home permanently. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's totally true. In fact, I hear virtually every day about another major entity, whether it be Google or Facebook or Hewlett Packard, or you pick your company. Many of them have said, you know what? We have figured out, with the employees' help, that we can work as a distributed workforce. We didn't think we could do it as effectively. And I'll clue you in on something. When I was working for big companies, when I worked for Motorola, which was over 20 years, and I left there about 20 years ago, even way back then in the 1990s, which seems so far away.
Right.
But even back then, we were doing video conferences. I had a distributed team in my communications role there, where I had people working for me that were around the world. And we would have, primitive by today's standards, but we were using video conferences where 50 people, excuse me, that should not be ringing. But it'll go away. And that's just another example of how things work today, right?
There you
Where
go, Ken.
people can reach you on your computer
Right.
instead of or in addition to the phone.
Right.
There we go. It's gone away. But that's a perfect example of how things have changed so much over the last 20 years or so. So just finishing up on that thought about the video conferencing at Motorola, 30 years ago, we were doing video conferencing, and it was really tough to do. The images were jittery, the sound was awful, but somehow we got it done. And now with the advances in technology, and particularly with tools like Zoom, we're able to do it so much more easily. And by virtue of a click, we can connect with people around the world.
One of the things that people I've talked to about Zooming and everything like that is people say I'm zoomed out. How do you address companies keeping it fresh and getting the employees engaged on Zoom?
Yeah, that's a super question. People do get zoomed out. That's almost like asking someone to sit in an all-day meeting. I mean, just think about the way meetings run. It's not unusual in the old world, and I'm sure it'll come back at some point, where you could be called into a meeting that lasts 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. That's pretty tiring too.
Right.
And I think what's happened over the last year is people have forgotten how those, when you think about zoomed out, I would zoom out of a meeting that I was sitting in, right?
Right.
We didn't call it zooming out, we called it zoning out. And so, yeah, I mean, it's not unusual these days for people to be in multiple Zoom calls in the course of a day. It's not unusual for me to be on 5 Zoom calls in a day. Is it tiring, exhausting? It can be. The thing to do is to mix it up a little bit. And just as we might do if we had an on-site meeting, where if it were a 2 or 3 hour meeting, we take a break after 45 minutes to an hour, right? Everybody go take a break, use the restroom, and then come back. That's one way to make sure that it stays fresh, whether you're on site or online.
Well, we're going to take a break right now, Ken, but we're going to come right back and we're going to talk more about the Countess Group and Ken Countess himself. Stick around, we'll be right back.
Boardwalks built for fun. Legendary rock and roll clubs.
This is how we do it. Hippity hop.
Casinos by the ocean.
Hippity hop.
Now that's New Jersey. 130 miles of beautiful beaches. Solid rock. And everything in between.
Look in the window.
Now that's New Jersey. Plan your New Jersey trip at visitnj.org. Waves of fun. Nights of excitement. And a trail of memories. Now that's New Jersey.
This plus this equals this plus this and this. Don't drink and drive.
Well, welcome back to this segment of Coffee with Joe. I'm Joe Asumendi, your host. But again, the most important thing is the person you're going to meet in 30 seconds. And we have a guest today from Orlando, Florida, Ken Countess, who's managing director of the Countess Group, a strategic marketing and communications company. Ken, welcome back to Coffee with Joe. Excuse me.
Thank you, Joe. That's great to be here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know, when your group has something very specific called 5 different coaching packages. Could you explain that to my audience?
Yeah, sure. We've put together 5 separate coaching packages, which each one of them, by the way, is customized. You know, as I mentioned in the first segment, none of what we do is cookie cutter because every business has different needs. So we've put together 5 different packages to allow a business that may be either short on marketing resources or they're kind of into it, but because things change so quickly, they need a booster shot to understand what they need to do a little bit differently today than maybe they did a year or 2 or 5 years ago. So the packages range from we'll coach you for an hour with 2 follow-up calls built in, or we can set up a package where we'll work with you on a retainer for a week, a month, a year, and all of it designed to help a business. You know, we want to meet their needs because, as I mentioned, everybody's a little bit different. Their needs are different. Maybe they are able to support having someone on assignment, or maybe they're willing to have somebody on a retainer or as a consultant, and they don't want them on their payroll full time.
Right.
That's the intent of these coaching packages, is to allow you to customize our coaching to your needs.
Okay. Now, if I'm right, initial consultation with you is no charge. Is that correct?
Right, that's right. Yeah, we offer a free 15-minute consultation to anybody, and there's no sales pitch. What I'll do is I'll send you a quick form if it's something you're interested in that says, here, check these boxes and let me know where you're strong in, where you think you're weak in, and give me a sense of, you know, what's the size of your business? What were you last year? What were you planning to get to this year? And that will help us determine how we can help in the future. And so that 15-minute call, after we receive that inventory back, we'll simply go through a diagnostic and we'll help the business owner with an understanding of here's where we think we might be able to help you. Here's where we think your strengths and weaknesses are. We often talk about SWOT, SWOT, which stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And so many businesses haven't even gone through that short exercise to help them really figure out maybe where their Achilles heel is and where they're really, really strong. And so we help them understand where the strengths and weaknesses are and enable them to achieve heights that they never thought they could reach before.
I'm looking at the board behind you, and one of the things that strike me right in the beginning is that lead generation. Everybody wants leads. Everybody wants, how are you going to generate leads? How are you going to go out and get qualified leads, et cetera? Can you go over that with me?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, most people are very familiar with this notion of using social media for lead generation. You know, they'll put up a Facebook page or an Instagram page, or they'll jump on LinkedIn. And the challenge for them is, how do I generate leads? So what we'll do is we'll help either build a lead generation campaign or help you take the leads you've already received and nurture them so that they are much more likely to become customers. And that's where most businesses tend to fail. A lot of businesses, let's use an example like a Chamber of Commerce meeting. Chambers of Commerce are incredibly powerful if you know how to participate in them. So I see many people, and I'm a member of the local Chamber of Commerce here. Many people will go to a chamber meeting and they'll exchange business cards and they'll say, wow, I've got all these leads. Okay, yeah, now what do you do? And that's where a lot of people have an issue. So what we'll do with a business like that comes to us and says, hey, I've got this bucket full of leads, or I have an email list and I'm not sure what to do with it, is we'll help by using most of the time marketing automation to help cultivate those leads. Because the story I like to say, the tale I like to tell is a lot of people will come up to you at a meeting and they'll introduce themselves very politely and give the short elevator pitch. Here's what I do. And the next thing out of their expectation is, hey, will you marry me? Will you buy my product right now?
Right.
And that's not the way you do business. The best way to do business and have long-term clients is to nurture them. Let them understand what the value is that you provide, and let them understand why they should do business with you. Rarely is it an impulse buy. So when we think about lead generation, and let's use the Facebook platform as an example. Let's say you put out an ad on Facebook, or you're really good at creating posts that are very engaging and people like your page, or maybe they sign up to join your mailing list. Well, the next thing to do is to give them some sense of why you're the right company or the right person to do business with. And that's part of that whole nurturing process. If you look over on behind my right shoulder where it says marketing automation, I mentioned earlier that I'm Constant Contact's top trainer. I'm also a certified partner of Keep, which is the company formerly known as Infusionsoft. They've got some really great software, and that will help businesses at a relatively low cost generate leads and do more business even while they sleep, because the software is doing the heavy lifting for them.
How important is effective email?
Well, how important is effective email? I'll answer this way. Most people really don't have a good feel for how to do a good email. Email, we all check our inbox multiple times a day, especially now when we're all quarantined or at home for the most part. So our inbox is constantly going off. And I get over 600 emails a day myself. And so, how many of those emails do you think I'll actually look at? Who's got the time to go through 600?
Sure.
So an effective email will get read. Answering the question, what makes an effective email? Well, the very first thing that makes it effective is having a subject line that stops people in their tracks, grabs their attention, and says, gee, I need to open this, otherwise I'll be missing something. This is that notion of FOMO, which FOMO, which is short for fear of missing out. If I don't open this email, I may miss something important. So an effective email starts with a subject line. I call it an interrupter, something that interrupts somebody's day so that they have to open it. They think they're going to miss something if they don't. But then once they open it, the trick is making sure that the call to action is very clear. What is it you want them to do? Book an appointment, buy now, download a white paper, those ideas.
What do you see in the future? How, with all the things coming up, what trends do you see in say, sales and marketing and communications?
Yeah. Well, email is, a lot of people predicted the death of email 10 years ago when Facebook came around. Email actually is even more effective today than ever. The ROI, the return on investment on an average email campaign is 42 to 1, which means for every dollar you spend on an email campaign, you should expect $42 back.
Wow.
That's a pretty impressive return.
Absolutely.
But where are things going? Well, in addition to email, video marketing is critical. Cisco predicts that 80% of internet traffic in the year 2022 will be video traffic. So if you're not yet on YouTube, if you're not using Vimeo, that's where you need to go now. And once again, we can help anybody with that.
So, another thing that I think is important that people should understand is that there's a lot of different ways of communications, and there's no one thing that is going to be more effective maybe than others. But you actually put together a real synergism of all these things together to make the most effective communication skills. Correct?
Yeah, that's true, because there isn't one particular item that's going to work all the time for everybody. And just as you think about how the big companies are virtually everywhere, right? They're on TV, they're on radio, they're on the internet, they're in print, and so on. We do the same thing for our clients, where we will help them create an email campaign, a video campaign, a social media campaign. We'll help them optimize their website using a tool called search engine optimization, or SEO, to make sure that they are not only present, but they show up in search engine results. Everybody uses Google, and there are very few people who don't. So you want to be sure that for all the money, time, and effort that you're putting into your marketing efforts, that you show up when people do a search for the product or service you offer. And so when we take the entire look at this, a holistic look at it, what we'll do is we'll help a company to maximize their results in each one of those platforms. And it may be different for different types of businesses. For a business that is purely business to business, they need to be on LinkedIn, and they may also use something like Facebook or Pinterest, but for sure YouTube and email marketing.
Well, Ken, we're at the point of our program where I'd like you to look into the camera and tell people how they can reach you and who should call you.
Okay. The best way to reach us is at the number that you see behind me, which is 407-242-4200. Our website is thecountessgroup.com, and you can reach me easily by sending an email to info@thecountessgroup.com. And we're available virtually 24/7. We've got people everywhere, and we respond quickly to answer questions or to provide help.
Ken Countess, this has been a real pleasure for me to talk to you again. And, I think that anybody that wants to hone in on an effective marketing and communication strategy should definitely call the Countess Group.
Well, thank you, Joe. And I'd encourage people to check out our website. We have live events just about every week. So if you go to thecountessgroup.com/events, you can sign up. Virtually all of them are free.
Okay. Ken Countess, thanks again for joining me on Coffee with Joe, and take care of yourself in Orlando, Florida.
Thank you, Joe. Good to see you again. Take care.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us on this edition of Coffee with Joe. We'll see you next Thursday.